My name is William,
My name is Josh.
Damien?
I'm Emily.
And I'm Cheslon.
and this is Smash Club. Smash Club is a platformer 2D fighting game. There's characters in the arena fighting against randomly spawning AI opponents. There's 3 playable characters with 4 different AI opponents they're fighting against. It's movement-heavy mechanics, so there's a lot of double jumping, wall jumps, air dashes, etc. with a power-up system. Right? There's increasing stats on health loss, so your mistake is your gain. For example, there's fire rate, speed, jump, number of jumps, dash duration, and all a lot. And there's a Pac-Man inspired off-screen movement, so if you go all the way to the far right or left on a certain part of the screen, you're going to come out the other side. Same thing with you go all the way down a certain part of the screen, you come up from the top, etc.
So with our development, we handled the game within Unity 2D on C#. And for our process, we broke it down into a couple of weekly objectives. So each stage handled a different thing. So we started off with just a character, handling their movement, their gameplay, and all that. Then we started generating a level AI and started testing and building off of that. So from playtesting, we learned a few things from our players, who include a couple of classmates as well as some friends we found along the way. So the controls were originally a bit clunky, so we modified that to adjust for player concerns. Level design was a bit too plain, a bit chaotic. We adjusted that as well. Game felt difficult. We limited the amount of enemies that could spawn at a time, since originally they could spawn infinitely. And we also added some UI elements to give players a bit more clarity when playing the game.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual implementation details. So the first thing I want to talk about is the inheritance tree. So every entity, player, AI, enemy, everything, inherits from one of these base classes. So you'll see that the entity class extends or is inherited by player and AI, and each of those are inherited by character and enemy respectively. So the entity contains all the methods that all of the types use, so move and attack. The player contains methods and member variables that all of the characters use. So for example, the player's damage, doing damage to a player, interacting with the triggers that the players do. And the AI contains the method and member variables that the enemies use. So once again, interacting with certain triggers, interacting with colliders, the amount of damage they do, etc. We have 4 different types of enemies in Smash Club currently. So one being the landmine, which you can see right below all of our pretty faces. It'll check to see if the player is close, and it'll explode. In this case, it would, but we don't have our colliders on. We have the purple spinning head, which spins around and fires randomly in a direction. We have the bird, which we use pathfinding to follow the player around and try to attack him. And we have the golem, which tracks the player position, shoots in its direction, and then teleports to a new position to start the cycle all over again. So another element that we utilized was the level generator. So we're representing our level as a 2D array of integers called tile map, and this determines whether or not a tile is at a position or not. And we also have a separate one called terrain map, which actually maps each tile to a certain type of terrain. So as mentioned earlier, we have sand, ice, etc. And we use that to do that. And we render the tiles on screen according to the integer values, and the pathfinding and unit generation rely on this 2D grid to make decisions. So the birds know where they can jump or where they can move and in what order they should do it. We also have music and sound effects in the game. So background music plays as soon as the game starts up. We'll see all this later. The main game itself has a separate background sound, separate tune. The character actions each have a different sound. So firing has a different sound than dashing, has a different sound than getting hit, etc. So now we're going to talk about the actual AI topics implemented. And for that, I'm going to pass it over to Emily.
So one of the AI topics we used was scripting. So every game object we have in Unity has scripts attached to it to add behavior, such as movement, attacking, and in this case, in the example to the right, modifying the player health. So if you're in the normal mode, you'll have normal health, and if you're in hardcore mode, you'll have half health, half damage. And we also have a trigger system. A lot we use is trigger system. So if you go in the range of a bomb, it'll start blowing up, and you want to get out of the way, obviously. And a lot of our collisions have to do with the trigger system as well to take damage. And next we have state machine. So there's a teleport state, idle state, die state, and attack state. And depending on the time and the health of the golem and the fire rate of the golem depends on his state. We also have filtered randomness, one to limit the amount of the same character that can be on the map. For example, the bomb, they can blow each other up, so you don't want to have like 10 bombs in a row doing a chain reaction and just defeating the whole spawn wave at one time. We also use terrain analysis for the movement of the birds because he can only move above dirt tiles or sand tiles or ice tiles. And we also have the ice, sand, and grass tiles, which will affect your movement speed. The ice will speed you up, the sand will slow you down, and the grass will make you have normal speed.
And now we will speak about the most complicated part of our game. It's a pathfinding. Basically, it's AI for game class after all, so we decide to force our enemies to teach them how to follow player. And in order to do this, we introduce Pathfinder class. And this class contains two main functions. First of them is responsible for generation of navigation mesh. If you look at the screenshot that you can see on this slide, you will see some weird red lines. And these red lines represent all possible directions in which player can go. And all together they form a graph that we call navigation mesh. Further. So, in order to find a direct path from a point A to point B, our AI enters coordinates of these points A and B into our function that applies a star algorithm towards our navigation mesh and find a path that you can see on the screenshot. The path is shown by white line. And now I think we can go to actually demoing our game.
So let's actually go to a demo of our game here. So we could pull up Unity, and I already had it running. So you'll see here's the main menu. Start the game. We got two separate game modes, regular and hardcore. One just means that enemies do more damage and have more health. So we'll go regular mode today. I'm not feeling too confident. Three different characters. We'll pick Speedy. He's the quickest one. We'll see how this goes. Well, I died. That's it. It happened. It happened pretty suddenly. So that's a quick little demo. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Smash Club.
Yep.
It's been fun.
Been a good
Signing out.
semester.